These kids, 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, some of them taking public transportation like it's no big deal.
Of course, you're allowed to shoot a gun pretty early.
That sounds insane to my American brain, hearing you say that.
Do you hear that? In those situations, I would have to travel to Germany to get those freedoms.
But it's encroaching on your freedom to shop whenever you want.
Hello, servus, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Feli. I'm originally from Munich, Germany. I don't know if you can see the poster behind me, but I've been living here in Cincinnati, Ohio since 2016, the same year that this guy moved from the US to Germany to play American football. In case you don't know him, this is Nick Alfieri, aka Nelf, a fellow YouTuber. About 2 years ago in 2020, we actually linked up for a little collaboration and talked about the struggles of living in a foreign country. I'll put all the links to those videos down below. And then recently, Josh and I invited him to be a guest on our podcast, Understanding Train Station, where we mainly talked about American football in the States and in Germany and all the differences in the sports cultures of the two countries. Super interesting topic. I'll link that in the info box below too. But we also both agreed that it's about time for another YouTube video together. And let me tell you, we went a little bit deeper this time and talked about things like our perception of freedom, our experiences with the German and American education systems, the independence of children in the two countries growing up, and so much more. This is actually part 2 of the conversation. The first part is over on Nelf's channel, which of course is also linked down below or up here. And since we both live abroad, away from the TV channels and media that we grew up with, I think it's very fitting that this video is sponsored by ExpressVPN, because a VPN is an expat's best friend. That's actually one of the first things I did when I moved to the US, was download ExpressVPN to my laptop, and I use it all the time to this day. Now, in case you have absolutely no clue what I'm even talking about, ExpressVPN reroutes your internet connection through a secure server and encrypts your data, which helps protect you from other people accessing your internet activities, such as hackers or even your internet service provider. That's why I really like to use it when I'm on an open public Wi-Fi, for example, like during my trip to Asheville, North Carolina last week, because I uploaded my Texas German video from the hotel Wi-Fi. And I mean, in those situations, I just don't know who else is on that same network and might have the skills to get personal information from my laptop. So before I even get on the internet, I connect through ExpressVPN. In this case, I just picked an American location, but, and this is another reason I use ExpressVPN a lot, you can also connect through a server in another country, which then allows you to view online content that is geo-blocked in your location and, for example, access the Netflix selection from another country. And that's why I said that it's an expat's best friend, because even though I don't live in Germany right now, I do keep up with German news and TV shows. But unfortunately, when my family tells me about this really interesting German TV documentary, or when I want to watch a fun game show that my German friends keep talking about, I can't always access those things from here. And that's where ExpressVPN comes into play and helps me out, because all I have to do is select the German server, connect, and then it's like I'm back in Germany and I can access those things. Plus, as I said, this also allows you to watch shows and movies on Netflix and other streaming services that aren't available on those platforms in your country. So that comes in really handy as well. If you want to get ExpressVPN for yourself, you can now even get 3 whole months for free. All you have to do is go to expressvpn.com/Feli from Germany, or simply click the link in the info box below. Enjoy, and now let's get on that Zoom call with Nelf. And I think it's a little hard to see, but my laptop's actually down here, so that's why you'll see me looking down most of the time. Well, welcome to part 2 of the Feli and Nelf collaboration 2022. We just did the first part on Nelf's channel. Everyone go over there, check it out. We talked a whole lot about the school systems, university differences, and of course, German bread and Butterbrezen, butter pretzels.
The most important part.
Absolutely, I agree. I didn't say this earlier, but I don't know if you noticed my really cool background. I kind of tried to adapt to your background so that we're kind of matching.
Look at that. The 2 images, white wall background. This is high production value stuff we got going on here.
Yeah, Yeah, I thought like I would just adapt to that. But yeah, we just talked so much about, well, I mainly talked so much about the university systems and high school and everything. But I did ask my followers on Instagram a few weeks ago what they want us to talk about if we were to collaborate again. One suggestion was the topic of freedom in Germany versus the US. So I would like to know from you, since you kind of interviewed me about all the school stuff, I would like to know from you, how do you view that? Is the US the more free country, the freer country, as I think the overall perception is? A lot of Americans like to say, at least in my comment sections, that Germany doesn't have free speech and stuff like that. What's your take on that?
Yeah, this is a super interesting topic because America is like known historically the land of the free, and it's you see that all over on bumper stickers, whatever. And my take on freedom between Germany and the States is I think there's sort of a different kind of freedom in each country. Like, say for example, I don't know, in the States you can go golfing without a license, but in Germany, for something like golfing, you have to get a license. And some people would say that
really, I didn't even know that. I have never golfed.
Yeah, for all you golfers out there. Yeah, so this is because my family loves to golf, so this has been a point in my mind, because then you're like, damn, Germany, you have to get a license to go golfing, something you can just walk on the course in the States and do. And, Germany, you're not free in that sense.
Same with fishing, I think. Like fishing in Germany, I think you have to have a license.
And then, I mean, in some states you have to get a fishing license or certain situations, but it's like super simple and not anything that's going to hinder somebody from fishing. And I'm sure there's a million other examples of where you have to follow the rules and steps in Germany to do something that in the States you can walk out of your house and do, not telling anybody, not asking for permission at all. Yeah. And that is a version of freedom for sure. Absolutely. And I feel like in Germany, basically the perception or the way it is you are free to do what you want to do or live your life the way you want to live, up to a point to where it would bother someone else or harm someone else is kind of the simplified version, I think, of it. Whereas in the States, it's like you're free to do whatever you want, not to like harm other people, but you can, my freedom in the States, it's okay if my freedom bothers you a little bit. Like if, this is how it's perceived, accurate. Like, shooting off fireworks or something like that, that's going to annoy people. Yeah. Like another example would be, quiet time on Sundays or, stuff like that. Yeah. Like imagine telling an American on Sunday he can't mow his lawn or work on his jackhammer or something like that. I don't know. Like that is where the freedom, in my opinion, is a little bit different. Speaking of freedom, to my fellow Americans, I have a documentary coming out on the American football in Germany. It is available August 19th. It's called Unicorn Town, available on all platforms wherever you rent your movies. So if you are interested in German culture and American football, check it out, Unicorn Town. Which,
by the way, is kind of the topic we talked about on the Understanding Train Station podcast together. We talked a lot about sports and American football in Germany. It's a very, very fascinating topic. And if you've ever seen a video by Nelf, you know that his filmmaking skills are next level. So I personally can't wait to see that documentary. Definitely check it out.
Thanks, Feli. What's been your experience like, living in both countries? Where do you feel more free?
That's the question. What you said is definitely true. There is a lot of limitations in Germany that are just, they come with all the bureaucracy and the rules that us Germans make. And as you said, it's very accurate how you described it, that it's really, the limit is where it bothers other people. Right. And I think a lot of it also has to do with like how closely Germans live together, that you just bother other people more quickly if you're being loud, because a lot of people live very densely, whereas in the US people just generally have more space. Right. But I think it has to do with that, but it also has to do with the German mentality, which is definitely something that I never really liked. So like that part of like limiting others, I never liked a whole lot. So like in that sense, I definitely feel more free in the US. And like, I like the convenience here. Like when I'm here, I can just go to the store at 1 a.m. on a Sunday night if I want to and do my grocery shopping. Or, I can do everything whenever I want to, basically. Of course, ever since COVID, I will say, that has reduced a little bit because stores tend to close earlier now.
Yeah.
Like during COVID, a lot of stores reduced their hours and then they never went back, which sucks for the convenience, but of course it's great for the workers because they don't have to work 24/7 anymore.
Yeah, but it's encroaching on your freedom to shop whenever you want.
Yeah, I mean, that is also a mentality that is very questionable sometimes, I think. Like, it's something that I enjoy in my personal life sometimes. But in other cases, I also feel like, wow, that's big entitlement kind of that you think that you have the right to just do all those things whenever you want. At the same time, on a whole different note, the whole safety aspect of the US makes me personally as a woman feel less free in a lot of cases. And this kind of ties back in with what we brought up in your video about the childs or childs. I was going to say childhood and then children. About the childhood experiences where you said that like 4-year-old kids in Germany just take their bike and like go over to their friend's place. And when I started elementary school, at 6, we would walk to elementary school by ourselves. A lot of my other friends would take their bikes or like their little scooters, these city roller, these metal scooters. Were they a thing in the US?
We would the Razor scooters, basically. They're like silver metal scooters with a little
with like these tiny wheels.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Super uncomfortable to ride on.
If you hit your ankle on them, you're done. Yeah.
The worst, So, but that's what we would take to elementary school. And then like in 5th grade at the age of 10, like kids literally take the public transportation from one end of the city to the other end all by themselves with like switching from bus to subway and everything. So that's a whole aspect of freedom that I think doesn't exist as much in the US with like especially children. Not just because of the parents. I feel like there's way more helicopter parents in the US, but also with laws, like you're not allowed to do certain things in the US. Of course, you're allowed to shoot a gun pretty early. That's a whole topic by itself. But you're not allowed to go to a bar up until you're 21, which is crazy. I mean, some bars will let you in, but like a lot of bars that are just a bar, you're not even allowed to enter that, which is not at all the case in Germany. You can bring kids into those places. And then, of course, you're allowed to drink beer and wine at the age of 16. And you're just so much more independent growing up in Germany. So that's one aspect. And then the other aspect, do you hear that?
No, what is it?
Did you just hear that?
What was
a very, very loud thunder. Like my whole house just vibrated.
Shit. Really? No,
like literally my chair vibrated.
Really? Oh shit.
I'm sure it's fine. But the whole safety aspect, like when I first came here, I was 22 and I was a girl and I would walk to and from campus and people would tell me, hey, because I had like a night class and it was fall semester. So my night class would end when it was already dark. And even though it was only a 5-minute walk through a safe area, people told me that I couldn't walk home and it wasn't safe and that I had to take an Uber or like there was like a night ride service from the university that you could book. And I was like, you're being ridiculous. Like it's a 5-minute walk. It's literally a 1-minute drive. I'm not taking a car for that. I'm a big girl. Like I can walk this by myself. And that was a whole thing that really bugged me in the beginning and still does a little bit. Yeah. Because on the one hand, people are a little overly paranoid, I think. And then on the other hand, though, Cincinnati does have a high crime rate. Right. And I have been around enough shootings and situations or I haven't witnessed a whole lot of stuff, but it's more like this happened to a friend. Oh, this happened on the other street last night. You drive past a lantern pole with teddy bears because a kid was shot. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on, right? And that is something that really makes me feel less free because with everything that people have told me and those things, I don't feel comfortable in this country to just go outside at night as a woman and just go on a walk. Whereas in Germany, I would literally take my bike home in the middle of the night after partying, after going out, and ride my bike through the woods at 3 a.m. to my parents' house.
That sounds insane to my American brain hearing you say that. I'm just and I would say basically in any U.S. city, you should not walk home after dark, in that situation. And this is something I was just talking to my girlfriend about this, and she was talking about how she is just walking home from a friend's house after dark, basically 10 minutes through the city. And it's a pretty major city. I'm like, what are you doing? Take an Uber, take a drive there and go totally against all of your German instincts to do the short drive and just do it. It's so unsafe. And we really had like a interesting discussion about that, because to me, that's just not something that you're going to want to do. And then also, I think what is so interesting, what you said about the kids. I mean, for you, like growing up as a German child from a young age, you feel like you can just go out and, just like I said in my video, is that, these kids, 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, going out and, walking through the town or the city, and some of them taking public transportation like it's no big deal. And so this is certainly a sense of freedom that I don't think exists in the same way in the States. And that's, it kind of just brings it back to it. I feel like the freedom that we're talking about from each country is quite different.
It's very different, yeah. And like, back to your first question, where do I feel more free? I don't know how to answer that really. I mean, I will say with the most recent political developments in the US too, where when it comes to women's rights, we don't have to get like super into that. But like that also, of course, makes me feel less free, because it's like, what are you doing? You're not allowing me to basically decide over my own family planning and my own bodily autonomy. So like those recent political developments have definitely gotten me thinking about my freedom here, and like how in those situations I would have to travel to Germany to get those freedoms, basically, which is not something that I would ever think about the US, because like growing up, the US was this country of like, the opportunities and the land of the free, as you said, and like the American dream, and like everything's possible here. That's what you thought always growing up. And right now, at least, I don't know if that's true anymore. So I think that also plays in here a little bit when it comes to recent developments.
Absolutely. Basically, you have to, like, I'm going to say, where do you feel more free? And you have to ask, well, free to do what? Free for what? It depends on the situation. It's like the circumstances. And it's like, if I feel more free to, go to the grocery store at 2 a.m. in the States, but in Germany, there are other aspects where you certainly feel and are more free. It's so interesting kind of living in both countries and sort of splitting time. There's sometimes when I go back to the States and I feel like this relief, like, I could go golfing right now. I can, go grocery shopping on Sunday. I can go to the store after 8 p.m. And after being in Germany for X amount of months, that's where I feel very excited about those small freedoms. But then the same thing happens when I return to Germany and I can have a beer in the park on a sunny day, which is something that I cannot do, in the United States, which is illegal in the States and absolutely insane to me. So it's like, there's just different freedoms, and sometimes it feels silly about what is acceptable here and not acceptable there, and vice versa. So I get a little bit of both. Sometimes I feel hindered by the lack of freedom in each country, and sometimes I feel empowered by the freedom in each country.
Agreed. I think that was a good way to summarize that. With the alcohol too, it sometimes bugs me that like restaurants, like going to a nice restaurant and then I would like to sit outside, but they only have like a certain amount of tables outside if it's like in the city, because they have to have like a fenced in area for the outside dining, because if they serve alcohol, it can't just be on the sidewalk like in many European countries where they can just add another table if they wanted to. And that has like bugged me in the past. And of course, the whole like walking through the streets and drinking, like that's what I did with my boyfriend Ben last year when he came to Germany for the first time. We went through Thal, which is like this one street in the historic part of Munich. And we just bought an Augustina for, I don't even know, 50 cents or euro at the kiosk. And then we just walked down this beautiful street up to the Isar-Tor, to this one city gate, and just had this beer. And he kept saying, oh my God, I can't believe that we're currently drinking out on the street in the middle of all of these people and nobody cares. And it's with this beautiful scenery too. And I was like, yeah, like you guys are really missing out on something in the US, especially in the summer and like sitting by a river or a lake. It's so nice.
It's absolutely, because like that's one of my favorite activities to do, is just sort of walk around, bop around a city, sort of get lost and explore it. And to be able to do that in Germany with a nice beer, a local beer from that city as well. Like I've done that in Munich. I did it in Cologne. And like it's such a nice experience. And it's something kind of small, but I don't know. It's very freeing to have that feeling.
Yeah, and I think that might be one of the reasons also why I feel like in a lot of German cities, might also be just the general mentality and the space issue again, but I feel like a lot of residents in German cities kind of make the city their own a little bit more and use public spaces a whole lot more and just hang out outside in like a square or like by a lake or in the park a lot more than at least I see it here in Cincinnati. It's a different story in New York City, for example, but like you can just hang out at one of those nice squares or lakes in Germany and just spend your day there, and you can do everything you want there. Like you can smoke, you can drink, you can do whatever you want all day and kind of make that your outdoor living room.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like people treat some of the public spaces, and of course this happens in the States, but I feel like it's much more common and popular in Germany for people to treat public spaces or a public park like their backyard. I mean, I was just walking in Schwäbisch Hall, and it's just like people are treating the communal space as their own.
I mean, the English Garden in Munich gets so crowded on like a nice weekend day or even during the week. Like it gets crowded to a point where you can't see any grass left because people literally cramp into, and this is a big park we're talking about, but people like just use every single square of that grass to lay on. They play soccer. They bring their what's the ball game with the yellow trampoline thingy.
Oh, I know it's on there. I know that game. What is it called?
They bring that
spike ball.
Yeah, spike ball.
Right?
Yeah,
okay.
They bring that. They bring like beer pong tables. They bring all kinds of things to the park, or like the slack lines, and basically just spent their day there. It's kind of like off topic with the whole freedom aspect now. This is more like a different life in the different countries
lifestyle
type of thing. But now that it's like summer right now, I notice that so much because there's a lot of parks in Cincinnati, but people don't use them. They go on a walk with their dog maybe, and like maybe a few people go out for a picnic, but they're even on a beautiful day, those parks are basically empty.
Right.
And that's something that I think I miss a little bit here too. It's just people stay inside so much more, do more like the consumption aspects of life more than just going out and like enjoying nature. And you don't have to go to an expensive restaurant to enjoy thing, or to like a overpriced bar and watch sports on a Sunday when it's nice outside. Like you can just pack a picnic and go to a park with friends. That's definitely something that I miss a little bit about German lifestyle.
Absolutely. What you just said there I think is pretty interesting. It's like, of course, there are exceptions in certain states in America do this more than others, but it feels like often in their leisure time, people are consuming something, always consuming. Whereas in Germany, more often, people don't need to consume in their leisure time, whether it's food or, drinks or TV or movies. Like people sort of just be in their leisure time. Which, of course, like I said, certain states do it more and appreciate the outdoors and stuff like that. But on a general note, I think Americans are much more consumption oriented.
I agree with that. I mean, of course, it's a generalization, as you just said, but overall, that's my experience too. In your free time, but even on vacation too, I feel like it's almost like Americans sometimes seem to think, I can't look into their brains, of course, what they are actually thinking, but to me, it sometimes seems like they think if it doesn't cost anything, it's not worth it. So it's almost like Americans sometimes enjoy spending the money, whereas Germans don't enjoy spending money. Germans are very, we like to save our money and we like to get good deals and we like to only spend money on stuff that is really necessary. And I think we just have a very different mindset on that, like especially going on vacation. Me and my German friends and my German family, when we go on vacation, we plan it very well usually beforehand, or at least we have like a general idea of what we want to do and where we're staying. And a lot of Germans don't need to stay at the most expensive place. They just like to have a good Preis-Leistungs-Verhältnis. Yeah. And it's like, the happiest vacation is when you spend the least amount of money but get the most experience out of it.
Okay.
The most value, and that's like the happiest vacation. Whereas I feel like I see a lot of Americans just like get kind of not a lot of value or like experience out of something, but spend a whole lot of money. But I think that it almost seems like it makes them feel good. Yeah. And I think that's a pretty big difference right there. Yeah.
We have the saying, you get what you pay for. And so I think a lot of times people value the experience of something just based off the dollar sign. It's like, well, I paid 300 euros for this hotel room. And so this is a high value experience for me.
I just had that experience last week. I stayed at a relatively expensive hotel in Asheville, North Carolina.
Yeah.
And the experience was nothing special.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, for someone like me who has traveled a lot, this was a very average hotel.
Right.
But I think these other guests really enjoyed it because they felt like, it's expensive, and they make it feel nice. But it really wasn't that nice. Even the pool was just very average and basic. But yeah, I still felt like because they kind of sell it as this like high end thing, it was like on the Biltmore estate. People felt good about it. I personally didn't. The German in me was like, dude, that's not a good Preis-Leistungs-Verhältnis. Like, this doesn't make me happy.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Did you have anything else to say about the whole freedom aspect?
Yeah, I mean, like, basically what I said about the freedom to drink a beer in Germany in public that you can't do in the States, sort of on the flip side of that. And I'm not talking about personal use, but I'm talking about in general for society, is that something like marijuana, which is legal in my home state and totally legal in a lot of states. And I know Germany, especially with
decriminalized in a lot of states.
Decriminalized in most of the other ones, right? And in Germany, like, I know that they're moving towards this in Germany, or at least trying to, but there is a category where in the States you are more free.
That's true. Like coming to the U.S. and like, for example, in Michigan, it's legal. I think in Illinois, it's legal. Like I've definitely been to a few states or like California, where you see those dispensaries that look like pharmacies.
Crazy,
and it's so weird to see it. It's just like you can go in and like, I haven't bought anything myself, but I've been with people who bought something there. Yeah. And it was like, they like give you all the different, like, I guess, flavors or types. Yeah. And then there's like different, some of them are like uppers and downers. So they have like different, what do you say?
Effects,
thank you. Different effects on you. And they basically consult you in that store. Like they would at another store.
Yeah, it's like it's
really
so
crazy.
Mainstream. And I remember when I went home, because they made it totally legal in my state a couple years ago, when I went home, like
Oregon.
Yeah, in Oregon. I'm looking at this store. I'm like, oh, that's a marijuana dispensary. And you just go in there like it's a coffee shop or something.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. But yeah, that's another interesting point. It's just like
that is definitely true.
Like just nothing really seems to add up in terms of freedoms. Germany
where the lines
States
are drawn.
It
seems kind of random, and then at the same time, this has nothing to do with being legal, but you just see so many more people smoke cigarettes in Europe still, in public compared to the States, where like that's also something that's more socially accepted still in Germany, even though everyone knows it's unhealthy. Whereas here in the States, again, this has nothing to do with freedom anymore, really, but it's just a cultural difference that I noticed coming here at the age of 22, where people would tell me that in the U.S., in high school, they were told that smoking weed is much more harmless than smoking cigarettes. And they were more like, let's say, encouraged or not encouraged, but like they were basically told like, hey, if you have to smoke something, like that's really like the less harmful thing to do. Just whatever you do not smoke cigarettes. Whereas in Germany, we definitely still have more the perception of cigarettes are not healthy, but they're kind of part of our culture, and a lot of people still do it. But marijuana is a drug, and that's like there's a line there, and this is a gateway drug, and that's a whole different topic. But that's why I'm glad that Germany's moving into that direction of like kind of changing that image of marijuana, because it's really not that crazy. Yeah,
it's so funny what you said. It's like America has this huge obesity problem and so many health problems. It's like people will go order 4 Big Macs and fries and a Coke and be like really overweight and be like, don't smoke cigarettes, they're unhealthy. And it's like it's sort of a funny I don't know what you call it, but it's just
true.
A funny
That's true.
image.
Like people will run around with a bucket of Coke, and but not smoke cigarettes because it's unhealthy.
You'll see a pretty thin, like athletic looking European smoking cigarette, and this is quite funny. Yeah.
All right, I think we've kind of gotten off track a little bit. I mean, I love it, but I think it's time for us to wrap it up. I really hope that my audience enjoyed watching this, and I hope your audience did too, and I hope that everyone goes over to the other channel. So if you're here from Nelf's channel right now, make sure you subscribe to mine, and if you're my follower, go over to Nelf's channel, subscribe to his channel, check out the first part, because we talked about very interesting education system differences. And I hope that we can do this again soon. If you guys have any other questions or topics that you want us to talk about, put it in the comments below, and then maybe we can use that as a little prompt for the next video, and then talk an hour about that, because I feel like we're very good at doing that.
We can do that. Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining me for another video.
Yeah, awesome, Feli. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and give us some topics and stuff, and let us know if you want to see another one. So we'll see you next time.
Yes, see you next time. Tschüss.
Tschüss.